the crucial conversations that are vital. Michael, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Boyd.
And we are going to stop there because we've made the point. But it's time to think again about what you think you know rolling into the debate. Watch and listen just a little bit different tonight, and you'll learn something important before you cast your vote on the first Tuesday of November. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Get full coverage of the debate for Utah's top job.
Republican Spencer Cox, Democrat Brian King, and Libertarian Robert Latham made the threshold.
Join us tomorrow at 6 as the candidates square off with analysis to follow. Your voice, your vote 2024.
We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
On emergency traffic on KSL News Radio, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. We have a crash with injuries involving a few different vehicles, including a rolled vehicle in Tooele County. This is eastbound I-80. It's just after the Lake Point SR36 junction. Emergency crews are blocking a right lane of traffic. Almost all of the vehicles have gone off the roadway. Right now, we are seeing stop-and-go delays build as there is only one left lane open to traffic to get around this crash. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Right, and when you're going out for a special occasion, you want to make sure that the ambiance is perfect, the food is absolutely prepared to perfection, and your service is superb. Well, you get all that at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. That's why when we're having a special event in our family, whether it's an anniversary, a birthday, or just a celebration of a graduation, whatever, we make sure to make a reservation at either Hotel Park City and Ruth's Chris Steakhouse or the location in downtown Salt Lake City at 275 Southwest Temple. Nobody prepares a meal more beautifully and more deliciously than Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. This is the place where you can say exactly how you want your entree prepared. Let's talk steaks for a minute. Maybe you're a rare, maybe you're a medium rare, or a well done. They'll make sure that it's done just right at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
Transform your old, outdated kitchen with Half Price Granite. For a limited time, Half Price Granite is offering special pricing starting at $25 per square foot installed. That's lower than most big box stores. These prices are some of the lowest around. Granite, quartz, marble, and quartzite, all starting at $25 per square foot installed. Call 801-486-1700 or visit halfpricegranite.com. Half Price Granite, affordable luxury.
My wife and I always loved doing everything together. Jiu-jitsu, kayaking, and intimacy was always on point. It was around my early 30s when I noticed a downward trend. Watching a lot of TV, putting on weight, and just full of self-doubt. I had tried another men's clinic with disappointing results. It's the personalized treatment I receive at Revive Men's Health that has been the complete game changer for me. I've got my energy and motivation back, I'm feeling stronger than I did in my 20s, and it made me a much better husband to my wife.
I'm Eric Ramos, healthcare provider at Revive Men's Health. If you are always feeling tired or moody, have a difficult time sleeping, or decreased libido, you may be suffering from low testosterone.
Book your free T-check and exam at Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, voters in the Ogden Valley area will decide this fall whether to incorporate as a city. Second, a big airliner knocked the tail off a smaller one on a taxiway at the Atlanta airport. Nobody was hurt. And third, President Biden says he had something in common with James Earl Jones. Both overcame a childhood stutter. The actor passed away yesterday at the age of 93. Right now, 90 degrees and partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Well, as the eyes of the nation look to Philadelphia and maybe braces for impact on a potentially pivotal presidential debate between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, that spotlight extends not just to the candidates, but to the moderators. Tonight, ABC News' David Muir and Lindsay Davis will face a pretty daunting task of trying to steer this high-stakes, high-wire political discourse. And they've got to be able to do it with fairness, but with substance, with a good amount of decorum. I think they probably hope that their performance will be like a really good refereed football game, that nobody will know who the referees were at the end. But it's interesting to me that their performance tonight of the moderators, because things are so different this time around, they really could shape the course of the election, the public perception about each of the candidates. And especially as we face this heightened political polarization, the role of a debate moderator is both crucial and it's going to come under heavy scrutiny regardless. Jeffrey McCall is a media critic, professor of communication at DePaul University. He's worked as a radio news director, newspaper reporter, political media consultant, and has a fantastic piece in The Hill talking about the fact that America wants a debate, not a spectacle, and it's up to the moderators. And Jeffrey, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So let's dive into this. Obviously, high wire act for David Muir and Lindsay Davis tonight. As that begins, what are you watching for, and what is it that they've got to navigate to make this a successful debate night?
Well, I think they've got a very tricky road to try to go down. I think it's going to be very challenging for them. And one of the hardest things, I think, when you put journalists, and particularly television journalists and anchor people into these roles, is that they're used to kind of being the center of attention and having all the focus be on them. And when they go into this debate tonight, I think they kind of have to work against that kind of natural tendency to not have it be all about them. And so I think one of the main things they've got to do going into the debate tonight is to try to stay out of the limelight as much as they can. And one of the tendencies over the years, as I've monitored political debating for many years, is that too often I think the moderators or panelists want to become pseudo debaters, as I call them.
Yeah.
That they want to engage the candidates in kind of back and forths or debate. They want to debate the candidates rather than have the candidates debate themselves. And I think that's a particular problem here because, number one, they're not running for anything. Number two, the candidates are right there next to each other and they can challenge each other. And then the other thing is if the panelists or moderators start debating either of the candidates, immediately people will call into question whether they can be fair and whether they are unbiased. And I think that once that happens, then chaos will reign on social media. And then in the aftermath of the debate, they'll be focusing on the moderators and not the candidates. And as you mentioned earlier, the best moderators are the ones that nobody remembers the day after, kind of like the football referees you mentioned.
Yeah, no question about that. And I love the fact, and you called this out in your piece as well, that this whole idea of the moderators have gotten into this habit of asking questions that are 3 days long and then leading to a gotcha kind of moment where a really weird answer is to follow. How do they go against that? You mentioned it a little bit in terms of going against their natural instincts. How do you change that dynamic? How do we prepare and have better, not just well-known, but better debate moderators?
Well, honestly, I would take journalists and particularly high-profile TV anchors out of the picture. My guess is that there are bound to be former federal judges or think tank directors or law school professors or presidential historians or somebody out there who could show up and moderate a debate who would not want to insert themselves into the process. And again, one of the problems here with having, high-profile journalists is that instinctively they want to ask challenging questions, which works out great in a press conference or it works out great in a one-on-one interview, but it doesn't come off so great when you're trying to get two people to debate each other. And I think that's where these people have to kind of pull themselves out of their natural instincts and their normal roles, David Muir and Lindsay Davis. And by the way, I respect both of them. I mean, they're professional. They have good ratings, all that kind of stuff. So, this is not necessarily on them, but I hope in their preparation, somebody has taken them aside to say, this is not about you tonight, and you don't want to, at any point during this debate, do something that would alter the course of this debate, that would, a month or two from now say, well, they sparked an interaction, or they set up one of the candidates, or they did a gotcha for one of the candidates, and it could be either one.
Yeah.
And they stepped in a pothole and derailed their campaign. So, I mean, they don't want to be the ones to set up either one of the candidates, Trump or Harris, for that memorable moment where they say something, ill-advised, and it costs them the election, because the candidates should be able to do that to themselves.
Right.
And I don't think we want the moderators taking on that role of trying to be the ones to say, I'm going to ask the hardest question of Harris or of Trump, whichever one they choose, and make them look bad. Or I'm going to set up a question with a long premise and then just say, what do you think about that? As opposed to asking a question that I think the questions should actually be more like debate resolutions that you might see in collegiate debating.
Yeah.
Is maybe to say something like, the country has suffered from inflation over the last couple of years. Please discuss your position on how to manage that and contrast that with your opponent.
Yeah, love that.
And both candidates would be in a position then to shine, but also contrast themselves. And I think, given that inflation is a problem, and it'd be hard for anybody to deny that, that it is a problem, I think that comes off as a fair question and something that is certainly on the minds of voters if you look at all the opinion polls going around the country right now.
No question about that. I've actually boiled it down even further to say I think the moderator should just give them a word and say, guns, you have 3 minutes, go, or healthcare, go.
I like that idea.
Because it would force them to...
I like that idea because it gets the moderators out of the picture.
Yeah.
And again, as I've studied political debating over the years on television, and keep in mind, television is a medium of emotion.
Yeah.
Television doesn't do real good with rational thinking. But over the years, the moderators have tended to ask very lengthy questions. And you've only got 90 minutes for these two candidates here. And if their questions are taking up 40 or 45 seconds, well, that's time that the candidates don't have to speak. So your suggestion about the one-word prompts, I think that's a great one.
All right. Well, as we round things out, just in our last 60 seconds here, you did mention, I think, one of the great moderators, the fact that he did it 11 times, 11 presidential debates. Jim Lehrer, of course, was one of those who you could say, yep, he was going to be straight up, fair, short, to the point. Give us one last quick lesson that we ought to hope for in the moderation of tonight's debate.
Well, it's interesting. Jim Lehrer had a very long, distinguished career as a journalist and was widely respected, I think, across the political aisles. And I bet if you went out and asked your average voter who's been around long enough to remember Jim Lehrer to say, how many debates did Jim Lehrer moderate? I bet most people would not say 11. And part of that is because he didn't make himself the star of the show.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things we need to ask for the moderators to do tonight is to come up there, recognize their place in history, and to kind of spark a productive discussion that takes emotion out of it and cheap shots out of it and personality out of it and puffery out of it. And if any of that does start to happen, it should be all laid at the feet of the candidates and not at the moderators.
Great perspective. Jeffrey McCall, media critic, professor of communication at DePaul University. Great piece in The Hill. You can check that out at thehill.com. And thanks so much for joining us today. Great perspective.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
All right, we'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. Don't go anywhere. We got more Inside Sources coming up next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. Utah party leaders are sharing what they hope to see at tonight's presidential debate. KSL News Radio's Eric Cabrera reports.
The stage is set for the first face-to-face meeting between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris in Philly. Utah GOP Chair Robert Axson told David Dujanovic They hope to see which candidate will resonate most with Utahns.
Is articulating a message that really leans into and supports the Utah way.
Democratic Party Executive Director Tom DeSiren thinks Harris's message will be about freedom versus control.
Really what we're going to see is the vice president talk a lot about freedom. That's been a really big message for her.
With less than 2 months until Election Day, tonight's debate is an opportunity for either candidate to capture momentum for the final sprint. Eric Cabrera, KSL News Radio.
Our top national story this hour from ABC News. President Biden says he admired the actor James Earl Jones for something they had in common. They each overcame a childhood stutter. Jones passed away yesterday at the age of 93. The president says his booming voice reverberated in the hearts of audiences worldwide. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing trading today down 92 points. The NASDAQ was up 141. The S&P 500 was up 24. And our KSL weather. There is a prospect for a thunderstorm this afternoon. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the 9s, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
The Salt Lake Chamber is Utah's voice for business. Okay, that sounds great, but what does it really mean? Well, as Utah's largest and longest-standing business association, they support and champion community prosperity throughout the state. And if you're in business, well, that's a very good thing for you. Be sure to listen to the Chamber's Speaking on Business, weekdays at 7:20, 11:55, and 5:20 p.m. on KSL News Radio.
Attention! If you owe money to the IRS, this is an urgent message. The IRS is cracking down by sending out heart-stopping letters, aggressively garnishing paychecks, seizing bank accounts, and putting liens on homes and businesses. They call it enforced compliance, and you better watch out because penalties and interest on unpaid taxes compound daily, making it seem impossible to ever get out of debt. Don't let the tax debt destroy your life. You need to call Optima Tax Relief, the #1 tax resolution firm. They're experts in the Fresh Start Initiative, one of the biggest breaks that the IRS has ever offered. If you qualify, you could save thousands. Optima's resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, they'll fight to get you the best deal possible. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
This is Todd Frayton's heart. He's begun his wellness journey. This is its sound on a treadmill, at a slight incline, on a stroll through the forest. And this is the heart of Maria Sanchez, his physician. What's it doing here? A lot, actually, because when we partner with you, we don't just offer a strategic plan and status updates. We put our hearts into it, beat for beat. We call it the power of we, Intermountain Health.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
And we do have emergency traffic in Tooele County. A multiple vehicle crash, including one vehicle that rolled eastbound to I-80 just after the Lake Point Junction, has a right lane blocked. It's causing delays. We also have an accident to the right, but UHP is blocking a right lane at the bottom of the transition ramp from southbound I-215's West Belt to go westbound on I-80. Murdoch Hyundai is celebrating 3 brand new dealerships with 1.99% for 5 years on the Tucson or Elantra. Murdoch Hyundai in Logan, Linden, and Murray. MurdochHyundai.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Partly cloudy skies with a high of 92 and a chance for thunderstorms this afternoon. South winds tomorrow, then a cold front moves through on Thursday, dropping our daytime highs into the low 70s. And right now we're at 90 degrees. It's partly cloudy. Tomorrow we'll see south winds and then that cold front moving through. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson. On Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
We're staying with the question and the conversation with Reverend Teresa Deer, good friend, extraordinary member of the NAACP National Board, ordained minister in the AME Church, a contributor to Deseret.com, and someone who's just out there making a difference in community and convening important conversations all over the country. And Reverend Deer, I want to kind of broaden our conversation. We've been talking about the great celebration you're here for in the state with President Russell M. Nelson's 100th birthday today. But I want to extend our conversation because you have your ear to the ground and finger on the pulse of so many things going on in community around this country. I know there's a lot of stuff going on around the political debates and polarization in the country, but I want to get to what are the conversations we ought to be having in community today?
Yeah, so our community is changing. We are quickly browning in this country. And I think that there's a lot of things we ought to be talking about. One is the browning of the country and what that means to us. That means that, our neighbors and our neighborhood is changing. And how do we respond to that? How do we become a better neighbor to our neighbors and to our incoming neighbors? How, do we acquaint ourselves with their traditions, their norms, their history, their journey, etc., so that they feel welcome and we feel comfortable in the interaction. So I think that's a conversation that we need to have. Not to get too political, but if this country experiences a female president, what is that going to look like in the country? Because we have not seen that model. Right. And while there is lots of energy and enthusiasm and excitement about the possibility, what does that mean, to other women, to men, et cetera, to those kind of traditions who aren't used to having women in leadership? Yeah. And what will she bring, if indeed this comes to pass? Perhaps greater empathy around things like those who are unhoused, et cetera. So I think this is an extraordinary opportunity in this country, certainly for the possibility of a different model in the presidency, but more importantly, how our country is changing. Yeah. We have different languages, different religions, et cetera. And rather than be upset and angry and resistant to that, this is an opportunity for us to, extend our ear, our heart, and our faith and welcome and embrace people, more people.
I love that. We have a saying on the show that on a regular basis, you ought to be sitting down with someone who looks different, thinks different, lives different, worships different than you do, and that changes the game. We were having a conversation over the weekend. You and I and Debbie got to have a nice lunch together, and we were talking about the difference between the optimist and the pessimist. Yes. That they're both, none of those are rational. The optimist is not rational. The pessimist is not rational. But then getting to this idea of hope, that hope is a virtue that can be fostered and developed. How do we get to that conversation as opposed to the extremes, the loud voices, the angry voices, the kind of populism unhinged from principle? How do we get to hope?
I think we get to hope a number of ways. First of all, I think when we engage with the hopeless, hope is sort of becomes more buoyant. Hope is bolstered because, how else to be a usher of hope and practice a message of hope unless you're talking to the hopeless. And, Jesus said, that which you do unto the least of these is that which you do unto me. The Bible talks about, this great conversation when the disciples were like, Jesus, when was I homeless? Or when were you homeless? When were, you without food, etc.? And so there is a call for us to come out of our complacency and go to the community where there is hopelessness. And what we find today is sometimes hopelessness exists in anonymity behind a screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, where we have folks that are lashing out and folks are in a place of being offensive. Why is that? Perhaps it is because they have been offended or they have lost hope. And how do we reach them? You know, and so I think it's incumbent upon us who believe in a hopeful tomorrow, those that believe in Jesus Christ, to A, talk about Jesus Christ, and two, or B, to talk about hope. You know, the Bible tells us again that, you know, hope is this magnificent thing that we all, you know, have within our grasp, within our reach. It is available to all of us. And so, to those people who feel that hopelessness and anger and withdrawing is the answer, there's another answer. There's a better answer. And that answer is hope. And it is, again, coming out of a place of comfort and complacency and moving physically into the community. You know, that's what Jesus did in his itinerary.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. If we want to have hope in the future, we have to be the hope.
That's exactly
each
right.
Of us
We have
individually.
to embody it. We have to personify it. We have to be emblematic of what it looks like.
Yeah. That's why we have you. You should write a book about that. It is always a treat to have Reverend Teresa Deer with us. Again, board member from the NAACP, ordained minister for the AME Church, contributor to Deseret.com, and an extraordinary human out there making a difference.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing with us today.
Of course. My pleasure.
That was my conversation with Reverend Teresa Deer, talking about hope. And that was just so stirring to me and has me thinking again about what I think I know about hope. That the way to find hope is to be with the hopeless and to understand where they're coming from, to be shaken out of our complacency and engage with those that are struggling. And as we started that conversation, we put that into context. We often talk about the difference between being an optimist and a pessimist. You may remember a conversation we had with Yuval Levin a few weeks ago, and we broke that down, that the optimists are not rational, and neither are the pessimists. They're both irrational. But hope is a virtue. Hope is something that can be developed. But it's often developed in the way that we interact with other people, in community, in family, in neighborhoods. And it's coming out of that complacency, our comfort zones, our own little bubbles, and recognizing what's going on around us that actually gives us hope. The fastest track to becoming a pessimist is loneliness, is isolation. We think about some of the tragedies that have taken place across this country and even here in our own communities of late. And they have been crisis moments, big-time tragedies centered in hopelessness. And so we have to understand what that space looks like and feels like. And then we have to recognize that each of us can do something. We can't do everything. We can't be everywhere. We can't be all and be the be-all, end-all to everybody. But we can be for someone. And as we brush up against each other, as we work alongside one another, as we engage in meaningful conversation together, then we can get rid of that isolation. We can get rid of that loneliness. We can get people out from behind the screens and the anonymity that often cause us or allow us or empower those to spew hate and contempt. But all of those feed in to what's happening in the nation in terms of this sense of hopelessness. You've heard me say it on this program before. I can get a little pessimistic about our politics because it's broken. But I've never been more confident. I've never been more hopeful about the future of the country. Now, that's not me being a shiny optimist. This is not about glasses that are half full, half empty, or rose-colored. It's about hope. And the hope that comes as we take action. The Matheson clan motto from Scotland is 3 simple words: do and hope. And it has always been significant to me that the do comes first. Hope is a natural byproduct of doing, of engaging, as Reverend Deere shared with us, to get out of our complacency, to sit with, be with, work with, do with the hopeless. And that's how we change the game. And that's why I can have absolute confidence and great hope in the future because of the kinds of communities we have and the kind of people who live in those communities who are willing to do. And that hope becomes a natural byproduct. All right, we'll step aside for one last break. Come back with some final thoughts on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Nate Orchard, the mayor of Sac Lake City with Advanced Window Products.
And I'm Jake, the other guy. Are your windows old and inefficient and driving up your energy bills?
It's time for an upgrade. Our energy-efficient windows not only look great, but also help you save on your utility bills.
And right now, we're offering an incredible deal, $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more.
That's right, $2,500 in savings to make your home more comfortable and energy efficient.
Plus, we offer a lifetime warranty on all our windows, so you can have peace of mind.
Don't wait. Call us today at 801-850-9100 or visit us at advancedwindows.com to schedule your free estimate. We also offer payment plans as low as $150 a month.
From our factory to your installation in 8 weeks or less. Call us today at 801-850-9100 or visit us at advancedwindows.com to schedule your free estimate.
Advanced Window Products, Utah's window experts.
Join KSL in the movie show this Friday from 10 to 1 at the Layton NPS store at 1150 North Main Street in Layton, npsstore.com.
Bet you never thought about this before. Do you think you could survive as a family living month to month at poverty level? Well, could you? Community Action Services and Food Bank Circles Initiative presents the No Poverty Summit, September 19th from 9 to 4 at the Provo City Library. Participate in an immersive poverty simulation and discover how much it can change the way you think about poverty. You'll also hear from First Lady Abby Cox, former Utah State Senate President Wayne Niederhauser, Utah State House Representative Marcia Judkins, and Joanne Goldblum, author of Broken America and the founder of the National Diaper Bank Network and the Alliance for Period Supplies, about how we can create better opportunities for people to obtain financial stability. Tickets are $15 and are available at casfb.org. Community Action Services and Food Bank's Circles Initiative actively assists those who need support to rebuild and transform their lives. Get tickets to the No Poverty Summit, September 19th, and learn more at casfb.org.
Are you within 5 years of filing for Social Security? Get this. 96% of Americans forfeit an average of $111,000 in Social Security income. And it's all because they filed for their benefits at the wrong time. Learn how you could avoid this with a free, customized Social Security analysis from Boss Retirement Solutions, 5-time winners of the Best of State Award. If you've saved more than $200,000 for retirement and have not filed for Social Security, schedule your free analysis now by calling 801-896-9622. You know, for some people, filing for Social Security early could result in more net income in retirement. Discover how you could get the most income from Social Security. Call 801-896-9622. 801-896-9622.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors, an SEC registered investment advisory firm. Insurance products and services offered through Boss Retirement Solutions.
Home ownership. At Progressive, we know it's part of the American dream. It's majestic golden eagles and other less majestic birds taunting you through the baseball-sized hole in your new windows. It's soaring guitar solos performed through faulty wiring in your garage, which subsequently erupts into flames. It's also around-the-clock protection when you bundle your home and auto with Progressive, which can help keep the American dream of home ownership alive and kicking. Get a quote at Progressive.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states.
Hello? Hey, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. Did you know we've got you fully covered?
I've taken up beekeeping. I'm always covered.
I'm talking the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage at up to half the cost.
Same honey, half the work?
Exactly.
Sweet.
Just call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single line 1, 5, and 10 gig data plans with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plans offered by T-Mobile and Verizon January 2024.
Email from school about the incident today.
Scary.
You know, teachers like me, parents, we don't always know as much as you guys do about what's going on with other kids.
Half the time, it's rumors.
Yeah, but if you're ever concerned about a friend who's having trouble with alcohol, prescription drugs, anything, you need to tell an adult, someone you know and trust. That can be hard, but speaking up about a problem is what helping a friend is all about.
For more information, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Dave and Debbie.
It's impossible to digest and consume all of the news that's now coming at us through either social media or through web pages or through the radio. Pick what is most impactful in your life and focus on that. And that's what Dave and I do every single morning. We pick those issues that are most important to our listeners and we boil it down so it's digestible. It's simple to understand.
I think we're trying to find the essence of the story. You know, you can't be an expert on all things, but that doesn't mean you can't be curious and really find out more and educate yourself and learn the complexities of an issue. But I think all of us start at ground zero on everything. Ask questions, show that curiosity.
And then if you need more research, you can always go to KSLNewsRadio.com and learn more.
Listen for Dave and Dejanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, tonight's the night for the presidential debate. You'll hear it on KSL News Radio starting at 7. Second, President Biden says he overcame a stutter as a child, just like the late actor James Earl Jones. And third, if you want to write in a candidate named Lyman in the race for governor, you should be sure you've got the right one. 90 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as it always is. I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the program today, of course, we are just hours away from the big presidential debate, the first time that Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump will be on the stage together in a debate. 4 hours and 8 minutes from now, we'll kick that off. And so as we look at what we're looking for and what each of these candidates is trying to do, we'll actually give a little tip of the hat to James Earl Jones, who, of course, passed away yesterday at the age of 93. His distinguished voice and career, lasting legacy. And we're going to talk about debates in the context of what both these candidates are trying to do in creating their own field of dreams that hopefully ends with them in the White House, behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office. You may recall in Field of Dreams, James Earl Jones delivered a stirring rendition of what marches on, what we should look for, and how you actually create a place where people will come.
Jones, famous for his rich baritone, was born in Mississippi in 1931 and as a child struggled with a debilitating stutter. Jones broke into film as an airman in Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove. A few years later, in 1970, he earned an Oscar nomination for his role in The Great White Hope. An accomplished stage actor, Jones won 2 Tony Awards. He earned an honorary Oscar in 2011, cementing his career in history as a coveted EGOT winner.
Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you deeply honored, mighty grateful, and just plain gobsmacked.
His most recognized...
That's a tribute there to James Earl Jones. And you may recall in the Field of Dreams, he talked about the fact that America had rolled by like an army of steamrollers, that it had been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again. Talked about how baseball was that constant throughout, that it had marked the time, and how if the character in the film, Ray, if he billed it, people would come. They would be reminded of what was good and what could be good again. And I think that's the real task for both of the candidates tonight, is to remind Americans of their past, about what once was good and what could be good again, even in our politics, even in our deeply divided, polarized politics, giving people that hope that we talked about earlier in the program, that what once was good can be good again. Not in the same way, not in a, back to the good old days kind of way, but in a forward-leaning, forward-moving kind of vision. And I think whichever candidate spends more time in the future tonight will have a great advantage. I think they'll recognize that it's very little about what was, but more important about where they're going and what that vision is, what it looks like, and what it actually means to the American people. I think there's some other things for us to listen to as each of these candidates try to create a field of dreams that will get you to come and vote for them. And so here's a couple things, just a few reminders of what you should be listening for. How do these leaders talk about the institutions in our nation? Do they build them up? Do they reinforce confidence and trust in the institutions that have made this a great nation? Or are they perpetually undermining? Are they causing doubt? Are they weaponizing the system? Do they talk about cooperation and collaboration? Do they talk about ways that things can be done where there are vast agreement between Democrats and Republicans? How much time do they spend talking about themselves versus talking about the American people? I think that'll be one of the things that Vice President Harris will try to do, is to do a little bit of matador defense and goad the former president to spending a lot of time talking about himself. And I think she will try to spend more time talking about the American people, trying to create this field, this playing space where it appears that her focus and vision is about impacting the American people, where the former president would be more about himself and his reascension to power in the White House. I think for the former president's part, if he wants that field of dreams to include a very unique second term, non-sequential second term in office, he's got to create a space where people really question the vice president in terms of conviction. And what does she believe? Is it chameleon? Is it ever changing and evolving depending on who she's talking to? He'll try to create a space for that kind of field to take place and to take a look. But the other thing that I want everyone to be thinking about tonight as you listen to the debate, as I always say, do they talk in generalities or specifics? I think that's a great opportunity for the for the president, Vice President Kamala Harris, if she can get to some of those details, put some meat on the bone, so to speak. I think the former president has an opportunity to show some restraint, some discipline, and to focus not only on what was accomplished or what the economy looked like and felt like when he was in the Oval Office, but how he would do that again, or how he would do that moving forward in a rapidly changing world. The last thing I'd have everybody focus on tonight, there'll be a lot of back and forth. The moderators will play an interesting role. They have a very high bar and a really tough task ahead of them to stay out of the way tonight and to make sure that it is rigorous but respectful and that it actually leads somewhere. Not just the banter that far too often we have fallen into. Even going back to the debate earlier this year between President Biden and former President Trump, where we ended up spending precious minutes talking about golf games and handicaps and scores and driving contests. Nothing that had anything to do with being the leader of the free world and president of the United States. Ultimately, I hope everyone, as you watch tonight, again, they're trying to get you to come just to their field of dreams. And just remember, in the end, it's not required of you to choose either one. If we go back to James Earl Jones, he said, look, this is how this is built. And it's on principle. And if you get to the end of the night tonight and you find both candidates lacking, that's okay. You can keep searching. You can keep exploring. You can keep researching. Or you can actually make a different kind of choice. And so that's the test we all have. To not accept, this is not an either or. This is not a forced decision. There are alternatives. Hopefully tonight someone will be distinctive and give you a reason to cast a vote. But if they don't give it to them just because they're there. And that's the choice that's been presented thus far. That wraps it up for